If you're going to buy a home in Dallas, Texas, you're most certainly going to hear the terms FHA or conventional loan. These are the two most common loans out there right now. Now, there's others. You have your VA, your USDA, your jumbo, all of these others. I'm not going to confuse you today. We're going to stick to conventional and FHA. And the reason for that is it's about 90% of all mortgages done are one of these two. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the differences between the two. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of history so you understand what they are. All right. So originally, the only mortgages that were available were conventional loans. And back in the day, it was 20% down to buy a home. And that's where that myth came from, is that you got to have 20% to buy a home. But that was like 80 years ago. That's not the case. But conventional loans are backed by the two major entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They make all the rules and all the guidelines, and they have all the softwares that go with all the conventional loans that are done. And while their rules are very similar, there's very slight nuances between the two, and they both use a different loan software to run it through. And sometimes conventional loan will work with a Fannie Mae, and sometimes they work with Freddie Mac, but most of the time they work with one or the other. So conventional loans are very credit score based. So the lower the credit score and the higher the loan to value ratio, meaning the smaller the down payment, the higher your interest rate's going to be. So conventional loans are typically aimed at folks that have 700 plus credit scores, and the down payment when you're above that doesn't really make that much difference. So you're 3 or 5 or 10% down, sometimes 20, sometimes more. Even though they'll qualify to a much lower credit score, you're most likely going to want to look at FHA if you're below that 700 credit score mark. Now, back to history. FHA was created back in the 50s for folks trying to purchase a home that didn't have the 20% down. There was no one out there that was willing to back these loans, and so it became a government-backed loan with just 3% down. Today, it's 3.5% down, and that's kind of changed over time, but it's a 3.5% loan, and it was created back in the day for first-time home buyers. Today, it's for everybody. There's no requirement to be a first-time home buyer. However, it is very common for most first-time buyers to use an FHA loan. So it allows for a little more risky situations, lower credit scores, higher debt to income ratios, because it is government-backed. Now, the great thing about FHA is it's not really credit score driven. If you have a low credit score, you get the same rate as someone with a high credit score. Now, I will say there are some nuances when your scores are in the 640, 620 or below scenarios, but not crazy different. It's not going to be a full percent different than what a 660 credit score would be. The other thing is the mortgage insurance that's on it. It's called a mortgage insurance premium instead of PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. That MIP is going to be the same no matter what your credit score is. I don't care if you're a 500 or an 800 credit score, you're still going to have the same cost for your mortgage insurance. So that's why it makes FHA loans more attractive. The thing that you should know going through the loan process is that you don't need to worry about upfront if you're going to do an FHA or a conventional loan. You need to apply for the loan, let the lender look at it, and give you the best advice. You can always ask questions and say, well, why didn't you qualify me for a conventional loan? Or why am I not approved for an FHA loan? But let the professional look at it, present you with some options, and then you can start asking your questions from there. So don't try to overly prepare yourself, because we're trained to find and look for the best loan program for you. It's our responsibility. So I hope that made sense for you, the difference between FHA and conventional. If you have any other questions, please reach out, and please continue to follow our page. We have great videos on all things mortgage and real estate, so subscribe and follow. Talk to you soon.